Trump's critics, especially on the right, simply do not get his Iran strategy. Starting with this, they don't believe he has one. That's a huge mistake and not one that you would expect from generally brilliant people like Tucker Carlson. But here it is, and you have to wonder why. So we're going to talk about that today. As I said, the first point is that they don't believe he has a strategy. But he actually has been incredibly clear on how he feels about Iran. Since 2011, I counted, without even looking that hard, 56 separate times Donald Trump has said in public Iran must never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. 56 times without looking hard since 2011. That's 5 years before he ran for president. So, how did they miss this? And let's ask why Donald Trump feels that way. I mean, first and foremost, because Iran is the top state sponsor of terror in the world, bar none. Iran's regime came to power in a revolution in 1979 that couldn't have happened but for the active participation, in a negative sense, of Jimmy Carter and the Democrats, who were absolutely rioting in American streets as usual against the so-called human rights abuses of the Shah, and then went dead silent on the vastly greater human rights abuses of the Ayatollah. Typical, normal, Donald Trump lived through that. Not just on TV like some of us, but actually in the streets of New York. So he has a long-standing opinion on this. They are the number one state sponsor of terrorism. In 1979, they declared war on the United States and Israel. They've never relented from that. The mere fact that we ignore it doesn't mean it isn't real. And they've killed Americans and Israelis nonstop since 1979, most of my life. And Donald Trump is not oblivious to this. He absolutely knows that his legacy cannot be Donald Trump was the president who let Iran get nuclear weapons and destroy Tel Aviv and New York, which, just to be clear, the Iranians constantly promise to do. The Ayatollah just the other day was talking about making New York a smoldering ruin. Well, okay, that doesn't sound like a distant war to me. It also doesn't sound like a forever war to me from our point of view. Our issue is they can't have a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump made that flawlessly clear in the negotiations that he had for 60 days with them while he gave them a deadline. You must actually make a deal by the end of this time. They didn't. And on day 61, guess what happened? Israel took out basically all their air defenses, established air dominance over Iran in about 48 hours, and started pounding the nuclear sites that would allow them to have the bomb. We're not talking about one bomb either. We're talking about enough fissile material to be able to rapidly produce about 15 nuclear weapons while they're clearly working to get vastly more than that and building 10 or 20,000 nuclear capable ballistic missiles. This is not about deterrence. This is about overwhelming Israel's defenses and leaving it a radioactive wasteland, as they have basically promised to do every day for 46 years. Donald Trump has no intention of letting that happen. Some of Trump's critics want to tell you that he's just a puppet of the intelligence community or a puppet of Netanyahu or whatever. That's crazy. Have you seen Donald Trump in action? Have you paid any attention to him over the last decade? This is not a man who's getting manipulated by anybody. This is a man who has expressed a strong opinion on this issue since 2011, and now he's acting on it. How is he acting on it? Well, clearly, Benjamin Netanyahu even publicly said the other day that he is Donald Trump's junior partner. And while that might sound demeaning, the truth is he is the head of a nation of 9 million people, and Donald Trump is the head of a nation with 350 million people. So Netanyahu recognizes the reality. These strikes wouldn't really be possible without United States support. And guess what? He's had it. The good cop, bad cop routine we've been watching is all part of the show, which Donald Trump has carefully stage managed and produced. There's no question that Netanyahu did not go ahead until Donald Trump said they could. There's no question as to whether this was all planned out with Trump. But Trump is great at misdirection. So during the Middle East trip, he skipped Jerusalem. Everybody in the press makes a big deal of, oh, there's a split between Trump and Netanyahu. No, there isn't. There's just misdirection in typical Trumpian fashion. Likewise, we're not involved in this. Okay, well, then why is the President of the United States demanding Iran's unconditional surrender? You don't do that if you're not involved. And of course, Donald Trump means to see this to a successful conclusion. Now, Donald Trump has been clear about what he believes all this time. It's worth asking, what do the American people think? Well, Trafalgar did ask. Trafalgar, of course, is run by my friend Robert Cahaly. It was the most accurate pollster of the 2016 and 2024 elections. And they just do fantastic work. And they have methodology that gets a lot deeper than most pollsters do. What they found is that 74.4% support the president eliminating Iran's nuclear program, quote, by any means necessary, unquote. 74.4%. The Harris poll found 85% approval, which is just staggering. Harris is not our friend. And yet they actually found 10 percentage points more than Trafalgar found. Trump's approval, meanwhile, has jumped. He's up to 54.4% versus 44.1% disapproval. These are the highest numbers Donald Trump has had in both presidencies. So what he's doing is working. And what the Israelis are doing is working. But even if none of that were true, Donald Trump doesn't care what the intelligence community thinks. Donald Trump doesn't care what Netanyahu thinks. Donald Trump doesn't even care what you think. Donald Trump cares about doing what he believes is right for America. He has a very confident sense of America having elected him to make those kinds of decisions. He also knows that he knows more about what's going on than you or I. And the truth of the matter is, he didn't have to have any intel from our very flawed intelligence community. He didn't need to depend on Mossad or Netanyahu. He knew the one thing that mattered, which is the Iranians pulled out of their treaty obligations to the IAEA, kicked out the inspectors, and announced their intention to withdraw from the treaty entirely. Well, you don't do that unless you're planning to go forward with your nuclear weapons program. Again, they had enough fissile material based on IAEA estimates that they could sufficiently enrich it to make nuclear weapons in a matter of days, if not weeks. And it's very clear that they intend to use them. That's what these missile barrages are about. They're trying to drain Israel's air defenses and make Israel vulnerable to whatever they send. They never imagined Donald Trump would act. And Donald Trump did everything in his power to make sure that they had enough ambiguity to continue in that foolishness. They've dealt with Obama. They've dealt with Biden. Those guys literally sent them pallets of cash on airplanes. That financed the terror war by Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis for the last several years. The Iranians think we're paper tigers. The Iranians think we're pushovers. And they extend that to Donald Trump because honestly, they didn't know the difference by virtue of the fact that despite Trump's maximum pressure campaign during the first term was very effective, it also wasn't military. And Donald Trump has no intention of getting the United States into a forever war. That's just not going to happen. So, what could happen? Well, we could absolutely finish this. And my prediction is that we will by using our B-2s to drop massive ordnance, what is called bunker buster bombs, that only we have on the nuclear enrichment facilities at Natanz and Fordo. I think that's essential, not least because Fordo is buried about 90 meters under the surface, and there's nobody but us who can touch that without nukes. So, we don't want to get in a nuclear war. We don't want radiation all over Iran. So it leaves pretty much this one option. I think that's been Donald Trump's plan from the beginning. Convince them that they should voluntarily surrender the nuclear program, or in the alternative, destroy it. I also think it's very, very clear that when Donald Trump tweeted, and I quote, 2 months ago, I gave Iran a 60-day ultimatum to make a deal. They should have done it. Today is day 61. I told them what to do, but they just couldn't get there. Now they have perhaps a second chance. Trump tweeted that on Friday, the day that the Israelis began their airstrikes. Trump could not be being clearer. Trump is telling the world that the consequences of refusing to come to a deal are the war. That's what he's saying. He's saying that he's the one who dropped the hammer. It couldn't be clearer. So, again, the critics misunderstand where Trump is on this. Trump intends a short, swift campaign to finish Iran's nuclear ambitions once and for all, either by destruction if we must, or by negotiation if we can. And this is just completely consistent with his commerce, not chaos strategy as he articulated in Riyadh. It couldn't be clearer. He keeps telling the Iranians, we can get rich together, we can prosper together, the sanctions can go away, we can do everything that is sensible to do. But what we can't do is have you nuclear armed. The enrichment has to go. And of course, the ballistic missile construction has to go. We really can't have Iran with 20,000 nuclear capable ballistic missiles. So Trump has been clear with them. If you just give this up, we'll be fine. There is another angle on this that's worth mentioning. All of the richer Gulf states have been clear that if Iran gets the bomb, they are going to also. They're Sunni states, and so they're very capable and very likely to be able to buy those weapons directly from Pakistan. So they're not going to need some huge ramp up, and Pakistan's happy to deal. I assure you that will not be a problem. So you're going to have a nuclear armed Saudi Arabia and a nuclear armed United Arab Emirates and potentially a nuclear armed Qatar and Bahrain and God knows who else. And that is not something Donald Trump is going to allow on his watch. That's a catastrophe. Some of Trump's critics are actually so goofballish at this point that they say things like, and I've seen this several times, well, it's not fair that Iran can have a nuclear weapon, Israel can have a nuclear weapon, but Iran can't. Are you high? Are you just crazy? What is wrong with you? Iran is the top sponsor of terrorism in the world. This is not disputed. This is not an intelligence question. Israel has been a rational actor that has kept its nuclear program entirely under wraps now since before I was born. It's completely different. It's like saying, we shouldn't let Britain and France have nuclear weapons because they might do something crazy with them. No, they won't. And neither will Russia or China, most likely. But we know, and for that matter, Pakistan and India, they likely deter each other, and they have so far since 1998. But what is certain is that Iran is not a rational actor within any framework you and I recognize. They do have goals, they state them daily. And I think what history has shown us is that when dictators tell you they intend to do something, you better listen. Benjamin Netanyahu knows that from the experience of the Jewish Holocaust in World War II. Donald Trump knows it too. This is Donald Trump's show, but it's good for the world. And we should all be thanking Israel for doing the world's dirty work, as the new Chancellor of Germany just did yesterday. There's no question that this had to happen. The only question was how. And if Biden were still president, or if Kamala were, we would have a nuclear Iran. And we would probably not have Tel Aviv, possibly New York.